RCKicks. On today's show, well, we're back working on this, the two-wheel drive entry-level Traxxas Slash. And in this episode, we're going to be upgrading this. Now, I pitched this up against the top-of-the-range four-wheel drive version. And in this episode, I've basically spent the money between the entry-level and the ultimate version to see if I can improve this and make this an actual better buggy than the top-of-the-range Slash. So, we've got tons and tons of upgrades to fit. Oop, let's look at, there we go. We got a nose chassis, and we got arms, and we've also got electronics. So, can we make the entry-level one better than the ultimate one? Well, I guess you'll just have to stay tuned to find out. Hit it, Charlie! Right, so I've picked a few upgrade parts to address some of the weaknesses with the Slash. Some for the two-wheel drive Slash and some for the Slash in general. So let's go through all the parts that I've got, what they cost, and why I chose them. So we've got a whole list of parts to get through, so I'll try to be as fast as possible. Now the first one is this here. This is the shock caps 3767A, £16.39. Now the reason I have these is the shocks that come in the actual buggy are known to blow because they're plastic tops and plastic centers. But if you upgrade to these, that fixes that problem. Next, we have the front caster blocks, £25, 3632A. Then we move on to the front arms. Now these are the heavy duty all-weather arms, so an upgrade. Now I haven't broken the arms on the actual Slash, but these are the strongest ones they do on 3631A. Front arms are £11.64. Now I have got some rear arms coming, but they're a bit delayed, so they're going to come a bit later than this video, but I'll fit them on another video. Then we have the rear drive shafts. Now the two-wheel drive one is known for blowing drive shafts. Now there's a few different versions you can get of these. You can get upgraded to different plastics, stronger plastics, which is what's on the ultimate. Now you can go to the top of the range, which is these ones, which are fully built metal ones for you. Now these are expensive. These are 6852Rs and they're £69.50. Yeah, so they are quite expensive. We'll talk about those a bit more later on. Now the one that everybody does, if you have the standard Slash, and that's the low center of gravity chassis. Now this is 5830. Comes with the chassis, the front, the brace, and a few other bits and pieces underneath. Now this is £34.15 and a total must. So far the best upgrade you can do on your Slash is this, for sure. This will improve your handling massively. Next we have electronics. Now this is a brushed system, so we're going to take that out and we're going to fit this. This is the Hobbywing Easy Run Max 10. And a, what's it say on it? It says on it somewhere 3652, and this is a 5400 kV. Now I have got something a little bit bigger than this, so we'll see how we get on with this. It should be reasonably fast enough, but if not, I can upgrade it to something else. And now I had this in my parts bin, and this you're looking at around about £100. Next we have these. This is the rear hub carriers 3652A. Now these are £28 including the bearings. Now these were on the ultimate. Then we have the steering blocks. This is 3636A. Comes with the bearings and the blocks themselves. £31 for those, so that's quite expensive. As for the servo, well, the servo is fine in this car, a little bit sluggish. So we're going to upgrade it as the ultimate one had a metal servo. So I'm going to use one of these KST. It's a CM653, and these are about £18. So I've never run one of these, so we're going to see how we get on with it. But I have other options if this doesn't live up to what I'm expecting. So the next thing we've got to do is rip the car apart, fit all these parts, and then see how fast and how good it handles after the upgrades. And then we'll put it up against the ultimate and see what we think. So it's super easy to remove the rear of the car. There's only 4 bolts. Yes, believe it or not, these 4 bolts are all you need to take the whole back end off. There's 2 on the top, and then there's 2 underneath, which are attached here. Now to take this section off, because we don't need this, because the new chassis has this plate, you have to remove the 6 screws. Then there is a long screw that goes all the way through, and then you slide it out, which is what I've just done. Now we'll take this whole back end and slide it onto the new chassis. So there you go, I've slid the new chassis into this two parts here, and then I've just put a screw in to hold it. I'll just put the rest of them in, and then the long one through here, and the whole back end is now attached to the new chassis. You could, while you've got the back end off, you could do the upgrades with the shocks and the arms and the ends and stuff, but being that you've got reasonable access, I'm going to do it afterwards, as it's just easier to do it this way for me. So I've put on the side crash bar thingies. I had to use the screws from the original one. You have to take the screws out of these ones. So I did that. The actual battery tray came with it, and this plate here, the two screws that go in there, they came in with the chassis. Also the pin that goes through there, the actual bolt, that was in the actual kit as well. I didn't have to take it off of this one. Finding the right spanner to do that was a bit of a faff. I screwed the receiver box back in, super easy. I'm not sure whether I'm going to leave this in or whether I'm going to fit something else. We'll see, but it's super easy to change. So that's the whole back end basically done. So now we've got to take the whole front bulkhead off. So I've removed the steering mechanism from the bottom of the Slash. I was a bit worried that was going to all fall to pieces, but they actually use bolts on everything. So even though I've removed all the steering from the bottom of the car, everything is bolted down. So that literally is all one piece and is not going anywhere, you see. So that, I'm very much used to when you undo any steering, it all just falls to pieces and you've got to build it all back up again. So this is the piece for the lower center of gravity chassis, which replaces this part here. So we have to migrate all this over onto these, but also this is where the servo goes. On the upright one, the original one, the servo kind of comes down, but on this one, the servo sits in here as well. So we've got a bit of a change to do here, but I think as far as I know, you just lift it off, move it over, put it down, put the servo on, jobs are good in. So there you go, it's all moved over. There was two washers at the bottom. When you take this off, make sure you don't leave them on there. Put those on, then you drop them on. Now you change these bolts. The bolts that actually come with the car originally are longer ones. And then basically the ones that replace it come with the chassis, and they're a fraction of that length. Can't say I'm overly sold on this whole plastic kind of steering aspect, but we'll see. There is ways to upgrade this, so I'm not so worried. Servo's now in. I've connected it up, but it's not calibrated yet. This needs to be a lot smaller, but you can do that afterwards, so it's not that much of a problem to sort out the servo alignment later on. So to remove the whole front bulkhead, there's actually two screws in here. Also, you have to remove the bumper first, which is 3 screws at the top, 4 screws at the bottom. And then that comes off and lets you have access to these 2 bolts here, as this sort of extension part here is not part of the chassis. That is an extra part that you need to remove to take it off. The actual upright is a bit different. It's actually screwed in from the back. There's 2 screws that are tight at the back that you have to remove from under here. There's no like bolts up here that you would normally expect. Then the whole lot will just shift off. So there's the basic front now fitted, and I have to say whoever designed the lower center of gravity chassis to retrofit did an amazing job. How it's so different around the front, how they got it all to line up, brilliant. It's a turnkey solution, obviously, so it just all bolts back together again. Sometimes you get extra bolts with the kit. Most of the time you have to take the bolts off the old chassis and use them. So I've just screwed it in here. I've got to mount it at the back. So next the plan is we'll remove the arms and the suspension, because we need to change the springs, change the caps, also change each arm. So let's do that now. So that's the first front shock change, to have the alloy top. Went on super easy, not difficult at all. Obviously this one doesn't have an aerated screw to make life a little bit easier, but I didn't have any issues with this one, so hopefully that's how they're all going to be. Also, you get in the lower center of gravity chassis, you get 2 front springs that are lower. So obviously I'm going to upgrade to those ones as well. So if you're wondering where they go, because it doesn't tell you in the instructions, they are front ones. That's the 2 shocks fully upgraded with the tops and the springs done. I had to top up the oil a little bit. Not sure what oil was in it, but I just topped it up with a tiny bit of 25 weight. So it's not going to make a lot of difference. It was only a tiny amount. They actually do up really nicely, and I didn't have issues with trapped air or anything like that. So they're just sitting there done. So I've removed the 2 arms and we've got them here. Now we're going to be changing pretty much all of this, as we have the upright and then we have the actual knuckle itself, steering knuckle, and then we have a set of heavy duty arms. So I'm just going to change over all the hardware onto these ones, and then we can put them back on the car. So that's one arm built up. There isn't exactly a lot you need to take off the original one, just that bolt there really. The actual arm comes with, not the arm, the actual pivot point comes with another pin, but you can use the other one if it's not bent. Now they come with extra bearings. Now I'm guessing that's because the bearings that are going to be in it, they assume you're going to be running it hard and you need to change the bearings. But obviously if you're doing this to a brand new kit or near enough, you're taking out perfectly good bearings and putting them back in again. So I will take these bearings and reuse them again because they're brand new. There is a shim that sits on here, so don't forget to move the shim over, as it's really easy to forget. It sits on the outside there before you put the pin in. So that's the two arms now finished. Super easy. A little bit different to what I'm used to, but goes together really easy. One thing that I would recommend is that if you're screwing bolts into metal, use a little bit of Loctite, because they're definitely going to work loose, especially this one at the bottom. I can see that dropping out, and that's the whole pin, so you would lose the whole the whole wheel would come away. Apart from being held on by the steering, it would just flop away if that drops out, and it's only threaded a part way down, it's not threaded all the way up. So there you go, that's the whole front done, all the suspension's done, the lower arms, the uprights, all fitted. Super easy, really enjoyed that. It's a pleasure to do this, it's so easy. It's like painting by numbers, I must admit. I haven't looked at any single instructions. You just don't need to, it's just that simple. Right, what's left? Got to get the wheels on, then we've got to turn our attentions to the back of the car. So I fitted the motor, used the kit pinion for now, probably end up changing the whole gearbox at some point. The issue I have is the cables are too short, so I'm going to have to cut them. What I'll probably do for now, just to make sure if everything works okay, is I'll mount the ESC up here, test it, and then I'll look at soldering them to make them longer, because it needs to be over here. So that's the uprights in, as well as the drive shafts. This one was super easy. This one is a right pain, but you can take your Allen key and get it right down in there, and you can just about do it. But to what I found, to get the pin in, go in, turn it sideways, get the pin in there, then rotate it, and then do it up. We're going to have to obviously dig back in again, because I'm upgrading these as well whenever the part arrives from Rochester RC. Next, we've got to finish off the suspension, fit that, put the wheels back on, and then sort out the electronics. So there we go, that's the two rear ones done. Now people say that the actual piston bends, but you can get upgraded ones of those. So we'll see how we get on, and if that's a problem, then I'll change them. Let's fit them back on the car, and then we're finally getting there. After many hours, I'm going to call this one done. So let's just clear up all this mess, and we'll go over some of the highlights and some of the things to watch out for. Right, so there we go, everything's installed. What was the actual process like? Well, I found it really easy, didn't need any manuals, just worked through it, super basic. The whole front and rear end just come off and then go back on again. The only slight challenge really is the front steering is different on the low center of gravity chassis versus the tabletop one that comes in the car. So you kind of got to get your head around that a little bit, but it is very, very basic. On a level of 1 to 10 from a skill level, I'd say it's a 3, maybe 2 to 3. It does take quite a lot of time because you are actually moving over quite a lot. Also, I was fitting a lot of other upgrades at the same time, so that just went on. So in total, I think it took me about 4.5 to 5 hours. Obviously, I'm filming at the same time, so I'm stop starting, and I was doing other things as well. So it wasn't like I just did this all in one go. I think you could probably do it in about 3.5 hours if you kind of got your tools and you're just getting on with it. So if you've got a Slash, definitely want to be upgrading the chassis for sure, especially if you're going to be driving on sort of tarmac or anything that's a little bit harder. Now, if you're going to be jumping it and bashing the life out of it, maybe you want to just stay with the chassis that you've got because you've got more ground clearance and you're less likely to bottom out the car as much as you're going to. But if you're looking for a bit more performance, this is definitely the way to go. But I wanted to fix a few of the weaknesses, like I said before, like the shock caps, also putting a stronger set of arms on it and upgrading the rear drive shafts, as I want to put a bit more power through the car. Now, looking at all the prices, the only ones that I would probably go a slightly different route would be the rear drive shafts. The Traxxas ones are very expensive compared to some that I've looked around at. And being that they've got rubber boots on them, this is going to have a, eventually that's going to wear out and crack and snap. open up, and then dirt's going to get in, and you're going to need to, whether you can buy the boots to service them or not, I honestly don't know, but they are expensive. How much were they? Sorry, I've got all the prices here. We'll run through the prices in a second, but I'm pretty sure they were really expensive. Where were the drive shafts? £70. So it is quite a lot. I've seen some for about 40. So yeah, you could go a different route. But for this build, I wanted to do all Traxxas parts because we're comparing it against the price of the Ultimate Slash. Right, so from a price point of view, now the car itself, this is 260 odd pound. Then all the upgrade parts that I've got fitted here, currently coming in at £229. So we're still about £130 short of the price of the Ultimate. Now we've gone and fitted a Hobbywing ESC and motor. If you had to buy those, they're £95. So we're still about £30–40 short of the actual Ultimate. So that's getting us to this point here. Is it worth it versus going for the Ultimate? Well, apart from if you like the experience of upgrading your car, if you don't have that massive wodge of money at the beginning and you can afford it over a longer period of time, going this route will probably be a better way to go because that is stumping up a lot of money all in one go. But you are getting quite a lot for your money with the Ultimate, all done for you, but it's a lot of money to pay up in one lump. Is this car now better than the Ultimate? Well, we're going to take it out and give it a bit of a run. There is some things that are better and some things that probably aren't quite. The advantage, obviously now this has got pretty much the same chassis as the Ultimate, so it's going to drive and handle, but it is still two-wheel drive versus four-wheel drive. I'll come on to that in a bit more. Some things that have improved, obviously we've got stronger front arms, we've got stronger drive shafts than you get on the Ultimate. Even though the Ultimate has the upgraded plastic ones, these are the upgrade from that. We're running a more powerful brushless motor. Now you could argue that Hobbywing ESCs and motors are sort of a step up from the likes of Traxxas. So there's that aspect of it. So the electronics are improved. The servo that's in this is a metal servo that's faster than the one that comes in the Ultimate. The shocks, even though they're upgraded, aren't the versions that are on the Ultimate. They're another version. So whether they're the same or slightly worse is another thing to be taken into it. This has the LED lights on it, whereas the Ultimate doesn't. The big one comes down to, do you like two-wheel drive or four-wheel drive? That's probably the biggest aspect of it, because if you're really after a two-wheel drive, well, this is a better way to go than going for the Ultimate. Whereas if you are looking for a four-wheel drive, well, you can't really upgrade this. There is ways to do it, but you're changing so much that you're better off just getting a four-wheel drive Slash from the beginning. Should you get the Ultimate? Well, that'll be down to your budget versus just getting a basic four-wheel drive Slash. For me personally, I like two-wheel drive buggies, so this is one I'm going to keep. The Ultimate will probably be sold on. Now, if you want a two-wheel drive Slash, is this the best way to go for it like I did? Well, I did find a slightly better way of doing it. Personally, you'd be better off getting the Slash VXL, which comes with the upgraded transmission, which is the 272R transmission. That's £389, so that's about £120 more. But it doesn't come with a battery or charger, where this one did. But you get the brushless VXL3 ESC and motor, which is what I've just upgraded to, basically. So that would have saved me £100 anyway. So personally, that would be the better way to go, I think. If you want a two-wheel drive and you want to hop it up, get that for £389 if you've got that money up front. It's an extra £120 over the basic one. Then do the upgrades that I've done. That would be the better way to go, because at the end of the day, once you've done that, you didn't have to upgrade the motor in ESC because it came with it. You also got the better transmission, which is what I don't have in this one. In a future video, I'm going to buy that transmission on its own, and I will fit this to this car, and then we'll do a comparison between this with the gearbox standard one, the standard gearbox, and the new upgraded gearbox to see, you know, from a difference point of view. Now, buying it individually is really expensive. It's £125 before you even start, just getting that extra new gearbox. So there's the difference between the basic version of this and the VXL version. And another thing, when you bought this version, it came with an NIMH battery. Now I've upgraded to brushless, I'm going to run a 2 and 3S LiPo. So the battery that I bought when it was entry level and the charger are now kind of redundant. So if you can stretch for that little extra for the VXL version, that's the way to go, as you're going to buy a battery, a 2S or 3S LiPo battery anyway. So I think that pretty much covers everything. So let's fire it up, take it out and see how it handles. Right, so let's see how it goes. Now I wasn't sure how powerful it was going to be once I fitted this motor, but it doesn't take long for me to figure out that it's pretty quick. Yeah, it's got more power than it ever needs, really, to be honest with you. And in a little while, you're going to find out why I said that. Yeah, so I wanted to find out what it's like to drive on the tarmac, as I'm looking to improve the handling overall. And yeah, super fast. Need to fix the brakes a little bit. It seems to be, yeah. And then this happened. And that's a brand new body. Yeah, that didn't have a mark on it, really. I drove it once before. Yeah, so now it has quite a few scratches, but it's okay. I learn from my mistakes, and then I go and do it all over again. Yes, I did exactly the same thing. It's parachuting a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Oh, brand new body, scratching all the way along. It's parachuting a little bit, but I have a plan to replace the body. I'm going to put something else on it that has the aero holes in it to stop it ballooning. But there's a few things that I'm going to need to do. It needs anti-roll bars. And I'm probably going to change out the receiver for a gyro receiver, so that would help, because it's now got so much power. It just wants to fling the background all the time. Not sure if I can tighten up that back diff. I'll look at that as well. So it's kind of work in progress, but it has now got the power that it needed, and the servo is holding up nicely too. It does feel much more responsive and super sharp. Now it doesn't look like I'm going that fast here, but obviously across a whole big field it's actually flying along. So really happy with it, and it's kind of brought it alive, but we've got to tame that power and a few more little upgrades. But I'm really impressed with that chassis. Changing to the low center of gravity chassis hasn't really messed with the off-road drivability.